October the 14th, and we're headed out. Today's just a full day of cutting, trimming. We got some hard cutbacks on some hedges. Some of these you've seen in past videos. Some are going to be, you know, a little bit newer. I got one driveway entry where the bushes or the overgrowth is taking over the driveway entrance, so I gotta clear that out, cut down a dead tree. Hopefully it's not too big. Looked like it would be fine, but I gotta do that and a couple other things. I don't know exactly how much I can get done today by myself. You know, we're in October, so the days are shorter, and I got a limit on how much I can put in my trailer. So, you know, if I've got to make multiple trips down to the landfill, then with the shorter day, that's gonna, you know, kind of cut me short. But we'll see exactly how much I can get done, how much I can fit. One customer did tell me I could leave the debris on his property. Great. That saves quite a bit of stuff, because that's a hard cutback. But you'll see that in just a minute. All right, here it is. Here we are. Here we go. And these are the problem. Big old lower pedalum. Huge bushes, totally overgrown, and we're gonna do a heavy cutback on these. And there's a couple goals. First and foremost, you want it to be maintainable. Secondly, you want it to be away from the surrounding plants. That one's not so bad, but this one is taking over our fence, and it's taking over the crepe myrtle and the shrub. Now, that's an 8-foot ladder, so you can see that lower pedalum goes up to about, I don't know, what would you say that is, 12 feet? And it's huge. It's very big around. I don't know that the camera's gonna convey it, but basically my goal is I want to give this crepe myrtle plenty of space, and we want it to be short enough that I can maintain it from an 8-foot ladder. And let's extend this all the way out, because when you extend it out, the ladder gets a little bit shorter. But when you're doing a hard cutback and you want to maintain the shape and you want to correct, always start from the top and go down. That's a super secret hack to making these look good every single time, because when you start from the top down, you kind of set the overall shape. It's hard to explain, but you'll see here in a minute whenever I get started on it, because if you go in here and you just start hacking at the sides, okay, the way that if you start hacking at the sides, you might take off too much, and it'll force you to have to take and cut too much off of the top. So always start from the top, because the top is the most important part of most plants. Trees especially, these aren't trees, they're bushes, but trees especially, you want to make sure you start from the top so that you take off a safe amount, and then you can reshape the rest of the shrub accordingly. So let's get into it. All right, hello, here we are once again for another one, and yeah, glad to be here. I've been waiting forever to record this one. Just for perspective, this footage you're watching was on 10/14/25. Today is November 19th of 2025. So this is a month later that I get to record the voiceover here. And it's a weird thing, because I'm going through editing some of these, and I'm like remember, like, oh crap, yeah, I did that. Oh, I don't even remember that. Like, because there's so much that's happened since then. And I've got another weird thing about doing these videos this way, is that things have happened that I want to talk about, but I also don't want to repeat. And I've thought about the fact that I don't have any channel views, so I could just do whatever I want, right? But anywho, I'm gonna try not to repeat and go into the future, but let's talk about what's going on in this here video. I'm cutting a hedge. Alright, so this thing, I've actually trimmed it up before in years past. It's been about 2 or 3 years since I've been out for this customer. Different kind of reasons and whatever, but I just haven't been out to this property because they haven't asked. I don't know if it's budget or just whatever. And I didn't reach out. Maybe I should have. But the last 2 years I've been so up over my head with work. It's kind of like, sure, I would love to do it. I would love to get the extra income, but you have to pick and choose sometimes, right? But we're doing this one today because, like I say, they had been trimming it themselves for the last couple years and not able to get quite as much as you would need to sort of maintain the height. But also, there's something that goes on with hedges, which is this. So let's just do the analogy. This is what I tell customers, okay? You have to think of a hedge. When you're doing hedge trimming, it's like you're doing a haircut, okay? And you're just kind of trimming it up. You're shaping up your hair, right? But now imagine you go in after 2 or 3 years of getting a haircut from the same barber, okay? But now your head, the actual head itself, has these big lumps on it, and it grows out, and it's got these weird irregularities. Well, that's what's happening with your hedges all the time. If you're just doing haircuts, a basic light hedge trimming, the base shrub itself is getting bigger and growing outward. So that outward wall that you see, that shell, if you will, is pushing out and getting further larger over time. So typically, I would say every 3 to 5 years, you should probably do a hard cutback if there's a certain size you want your shrubbery to be at. This one is probably a year or 2 overdue on that. But we're here to fix it today, and this is what makes this a necessity, is just the fact that things will grow in that way over time, and they'll get to this point where you have to take off a lot more, and it is ugly, but it's very temporary. That was a good rhyme. But it's very temporary in the terms of Mother Nature and the way things grow. These loropetalums especially, they're very hardy, and I fully expect them to be blooming again come March or April, and they're going to look fantastic by the time summer rolls around. Now there are risks to doing this. If you take off too much, which, a hard cutback in simplest terms is kind of intentionally taking off too much. You wouldn't want to do this every single time you cut it, but if you do it at the right time, you can get away with it, especially a shrub like this that is so well established. You can get away with it. And it is really required that you do a harder cutback every so often, so that you don't have to take off as much as I'm having to take off here. But the thing is, they didn't want it to be, a 12 or 13 foot loropetalum, So I think in this video, I'm taking it down to about 7.5 feet or 7 feet, because my ladder that you're viewing from here is about 8 feet tall. And so we're just kind of cutting it just a little bit below that height. And then we're going to try to give this crepe myrtle a little bit of breathing room. And then this fence on the right side a little bit of breathing room. But if you go in every 2 or 3 years and you instead of just giving it a haircut, you take it down to the bare branches. Typically, that is that's sort of the best way to maintain a shape on something like this. But I've got a few customers in this area, so the yard across the street, you'll see me do a full hedge trim on those, where I have to get the arborist ladder out and all that kind of stuff. And I actually I top the lower pedalum over there as well to cut it down, because it was getting, to that point where the shape was a little irregular. I didn't take nearly as much as I'm taking off here, but like I say, I did the same thing that I'm doing here across the street to a lighter degree. And then the neighbor to the one across the street, I also work for them, and multiple times I have really cut back their lower pedalum, and those things are just blazing with color. I mean, we've taken it down twice on that property, and it comes back within like 2 or 3 months, typically, because we cut them, they requested it, I think, in April of last year, and then again in October. She was like, can we just do a little bit more? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, it's fine. And they just come back. This year they're actually a really, really solid shape. The blooms, the color is just better. So this is actually beneficial, But like I was saying earlier, there are risks to doing this. You could lose a shrub. You could lose half of a shrub. Things happen. If it were to come and be like a week of single-digit weather with rain and frost and really, really negative conditions shortly after, yeah, you might be in trouble. Likewise, if you do this during the summer, which you can do this during the summer on a lower pedalum, but let's say we do this in the end of May or early June, but then a drought rolls in and it doesn't rain for a month and you don't water it, there's a pretty significant risk that you could lose at least a part of the shrub. But the thing that we're doing here that makes this particular situation okay is that it was October the 14th. I think the temperature that day was like maybe 75, 80-ish. Oh, and here's the secret that I don't see anyone doing. Use a pitchfork to pick up your clippings. I see people raking things on the tarps and stuff, but you can get so much more material on a pitchfork. So there's a super secret gem of information hidden into this video for you. But anyway, it's October 14th when I was doing this. The temp was like 80 degrees max, and it has been consistently in the 70s since then. We've had 2 days where the nighttime temperatures went to 20 degrees, and then it went right back up to the 60s, 70s, so super safe temps to do this type of thing, because it's not going to stress the shrub. We're not getting any rain. Like, you couldn't ask for a better year to be doing hard cutbacks. And I'm doing a lot of hard cutbacks. You're going to see a few in the next video. I'm going to do another one on some boxwoods that I take way far back. And I'm really excited to do a follow-up video. Because listen, sometimes these don't work out. Like, sometimes you can lose the shrub, but that's part of the reason why you want to be on top of your maintenance. All right, so we got the bulk of the leafy material off, and now we go around and we see how do we make a shape out of it, right? So this side's looking okay, so what I want to do is kind of fix the top and then go around at all angles, because you'll notice things on occasion. And I think the sides are fine, but I want that top to be flat. So we'll walk out to here And you can see that left side's a lot bigger. The right side looks totally fine, but that left side has all the thicker growth, so it was a little bit more difficult to trim up. And you can really see that here. And then I want to look as if I'm driving down the road, and you can see more stuff on that side. So I think this closest to us is fine. Let's try and fix the other side up real quick. All right, there's a final walk around. Now, when you're doing a heavy cutback like this, look, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pristine. The point of this kind of cut is when it's unruly. And you know, before it was coming out past the fence, I'll edit that in here, and it was eating this crepe myrtle. I'll edit that in here. And the point of this kind of cut is to try and get it back to a tame position. So it's not going to be a perfect square or a circle because the foliage isn't dense enough, you know, especially when it's just the thick branches that are left like this and there's no leafy material. That's just how it is going to be. You can get pretty close, okay, to a good shape. But for the most part, this is just a really rough cut to get it back to a maintainable size. And then we'll do the same thing over here to this one, because I think this one's actually even a little bit taller. And what I think I'll do on this one is take the chainsaw and try to cut, let me see here. Take the chainsaw and try to cut this one in half. Here's the amount we took off the first little shrub. Let's see the second. All right, so I'm gonna ask you politely to ignore my horrible camera angle, but you know what? It works out. Here in a minute, you're gonna be able to see how much we're cutting off. There you go. Look at that opening. It's hard to figure out where to put the camera sometimes. I've gone and picked up a few mounts, and it really helps out if you have a variety of mounts. In the next few videos, though, I go straight to the head mount almost every time, and it makes this so much easier because I can just get straight into the work, and it doesn't take quite as much time. I've even gotten to the point where I can just switch a battery. Like, I'll keep one battery in my pocket, and I'll just switch the thing out on my head and fire it back up and keep going. I also have a new camera. I don't know if today's the day with the new camera or not. I can't remember. But eventually I do get a new camera, so hopefully things look better. I still don't know because I'm a month ahead and I haven't seen any of that footage yet. Right? But yeah, man. Trimming a shrub like this, when I was shaping it up and just sort of keeping it intact, these things are hard to do and do well because they're on these little slopes, and these are not the worst example. I think the worst example is literally across the street. Maybe you'll see it in this video in the background or not, but the one across the street is literally one side of the shrub is in a ditch, so even on top of the orchard ladder, like, it's hard for me to get to the top of that thing and actually get a really good shape out of it, because the ground you're standing on kind of changes your angle of attack. That's why I think these articulating hedge trimmers, if you don't have one, you have to get articulating hedge trimmers, because it lets you do things that just wouldn't be possible if you didn't have them, obviously. All right, we'll take a walk around. We got room from the crepe myrtle. We got room from the post, and the shape is pretty darn good, all things considered. All right, final walk off on this one. Got the ground all cleaned up, everything looking good, all blown out. Hedges are shaped, clean, manageable, much better shape than before. Let's go look at the smaller one over here. But they're roughly about the same size. This one on this side is a little bit thinner, but check it out, man. Got plenty of space for everything now. On to the next one. So to reiterate on the hard cutback service, the goal is not to get to a perfect shape, you know, that perfect clean cut, you know, tightly shaped hedge comes from one that you know, you're just taking a little bit off. When you're doing that, when you're taking off, you know, half of the shrub or almost half of the shrub like that, the goal isn't to achieve immediate perfection, right? Those particular plants, Loropetalum, are very hardy and they grow extremely quick. And by next May, we should see that thing blooming out fully, completely, and looking better than ever. Now, the way to keep it that shape, that size, and to keep it from taking over the space again is to trim it at least 3 times a season. Now, the thing that people don't really account for with hedges is eventually you just have to do a hard cutback on things. Unless you just really like the big giant kind of overgrown look, which some people do. But the thing about hedges is, yes, the outside of the hedge grows the little sprigs and the new growth, and sometimes it's a lighter green. On those it's a kind of a greenish purplish kind of mix. So it'll always put out the leggy, like skinny, thin new growth, but the main trunk itself is actually growing underneath all of that too, and it slowly, you know, pushes that entire size of the shrub bigger and bigger and bigger. So you have to do eventually a big cutback, and I'm seeing a lot of shrubs on my schedule that are getting to a point where they need another hard cutback. You know, I did one probably 5 years ago for everybody, but it's about time to do it again, just because, you know, the rain that we've had these last few years, everything is just exploding in growth and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so yeah, this is a year where a lot of my shrubs, I need to do a heavy cutback, and if I don't, they're just going to get harder and harder to maintain. Those in particular, I hadn't trimmed them in the last couple years, just expense or whatever the situation is, but you know, they'll need to be cut 3, 4, 5 times a year to really encourage it to get dense and keep that smaller shape over time. All right, here's the next little bit of cleanup. I'm gonna clean around this tree. I'm gonna cut this tree out, cut a lot of this back, and then I'll try to clean up their entryway a little bit. That tree's not nearly as big as I thought. That's what we're working on. So this one hurts, and it is very frustrating to me because I lost a majority of the footage here, and I was so excited to get home and see this, that when I realized that half of the footage was gone because this camera broke or was on its way to breaking, I literally had to, I finished editing, because here's the sequence, right? I did all of the work editing the previous stuff, and then I imported this footage to get it into the process, and then I realized, crap, a majority of this is gone. I had to step away because I was so excited to see the progression of this one, because this was going to be a fantastic before and after, like, time-lapse video, and all of it's gone. And that is beyond frustrating, man. Anywho, check out how I'm doing this. Most people, I feel like, would be in here with a brush cutter or something. I don't know what you would be in here with, but I'm using my combi hedge trimmer. And now, for perspective, this is a few days before I start doing my, like, shape up, my maintenance hedge trimming, the haircuts that we were talking about. So I'm doing these types of jobs, the hard cutbacks and these semi brush clearing jobs. I'm doing them now so that I could sharpen my blades when these types of jobs are done and be ready for those fine trimming jobs, because this does dull your blades. It wears it out. I'm gonna have to grease after this, but yeah, we're going straight to this, and look at how much I took off, and I lost most of that footage. It sucks, dude. I was so angry. I remember I had to step away from this for a little bit, and then came back, and I was like, okay, that's fine. We're just gonna go straight to blowing off the area. But look, I did all of that with hedge trimmers, and it looks pretty darn good. Now, it's not a perfectly smooth finish, but I'm not going to bring a stump grinder in here and grind up all those little mini stumps or mini, you know, you'll see them here in a minute when I blow this pine straw off, but this is a pretty solid finish for what we're using, and that's why I do it, right? I could go get a $1,200, $1,300 brush cutter or more, and I do have a brush cutter attachment on my combi, but I like this way better. You know, I haven't used the brush cutter attachment much, just because this is the way I always do it. Maybe I'll give it a shot later, because I do have a job coming up this week, actually. It's November 19th as I do the voiceover, but the footage you're watching is on 10/14, so we're a month apart. But real time in November 19th, I've got a job coming up that I could use a brush cutter on. Maybe I'll try it. But dude, I was devastated to lose this footage. But you can see this, I got all of this. And that's why I got rid of this camera. It's just because I would lose random things. But one thing about doing a job like this is there's a lot of vines and stuff tied up in here. And so you have to kind of pace yourself, and you have to chop things up, and you got to lay it out to the side and all that, kind of like I'm doing here in these piles, because it makes it easier. You can kind of batch it into stacks and lay it on your trailer a little bit easier. But basically what I'll do is I'll cut things, load the trailer, make a pile, cut things to size to fit on the trailer without overhang. And that's what these piles are you see me make it, is just I kind of batch it all together. And if you do things like this, sometimes these things feel like a big job to do by hand, but if you batch it up and you just pace yourself and you're not trying to rush constantly, it actually goes pretty quick. So now I start chopping a little bit higher up on this tree because most of it is dead. And it's at their entryway, so I don't want to have a big pile of stuff laying here. So if someone drives by, I have to wait until I clean up the entire tree. But also, the base of this tree is a little bit too big for my chainsaw. This chainsaw is one that I got way back in like 2018, and it just freaking works. Still, man. Still, they figured out chainsaws, but then all the other hand equipment I've used, it just can't cut it. Pardon the pun. And for the longest time, this chainsaw wouldn't run. I couldn't get it to start. I bought an Echo chainsaw, and I used it for like 2 years, and I still have it too. But then one day, I just fired up this stihl chainsaw, and it just worked. Alright, here's the finished result. All cut back, so we're not scraping the cars. We got rid of that big old tree. Got rid of all the stuff around this, so it looks a lot nicer. We're good to go. And there it is. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you got this far, comment the word chainsaw.